Welcome to tutorial 1D on analysis and layout. And in this I'm going to show you how to export all of your information and graphs from your Excel spreadsheet and lay out the information, and then most importantly create a new layer to annotate it so that you can start to show what your understanding is. So let me begin by showing you an easy way of exporting from Excel. Here's the spreadsheet that we've been filling out so far in this tutorial, in the last one. And as I mentioned before, all these yellow and green cells kind of drive me nuts when I look at them, when I look at your work. And hopefully it drives you nuts too, because it doesn't look very good. So I'm going to request that you remove them by highlighting everything. I just pressed Shift as I dragged, and then going to this fill button and saying no fill, and that will take all those out so we don't have to look at yellow and green nonsense. And then once you're done and you're happy with your work, go to the File and Print. And when you print, it should give you the option to print to Adobe PDF. And the easiest way to do this is to print these pages to Adobe PDF, and then I'll show you how to lay them out in another program. So down here you can see it's going to print one of two pages. This is the first page that shows your spreadsheet, and the second page just shows the graphs. I've already laid these out, so it should work great for you. So I'm going to print this. Shouldn't take very much time, and it'll ask you to save it, and I'm just going to save it to my desktop for now as a PDF. It takes a little bit of time to do that. By the way, if you don't have the printer drivers for some reason, or if the lab doesn't have it installed, you can alternatively save as a PDF, and that should come out just as well as printing to a PDF. This is still working on it. You can see you'll get a dialog box like this, and I'm going to pause the video and come back when it's done. Okay, it's done now. It just took about 10 seconds longer. And now I've got this PDF. It's open in Adobe Acrobat, and if I page down, you can see the second page there. I'm not going to zoom in now. You'll see this in a second when I import it. So I'm going to close this. And while I'm here, I might as well show you the Save As PDF. So instead of print, you can also Save As PDF. And this is essentially the same thing that we just did. So we would want to print the energy model example or energy model template, and I'm printing the example, and convert to PDF. Needs to save before it does it, and then it'll allow you to export it just like we just did. So this method is equally good to make the PDF. Okay, so I want to show you how to use a program called InDesign. I don't know how many of you, I guess I asked you in your initial survey if you've used this before. This is part of the Adobe Creative Suite, and the version I'm showing you here is in the Creative Cloud. I'm not sure which version the computer lab has, but it works pretty similar. And if you're familiar with Photoshop or Illustrator, this is very similar in concept. So I'll show you how to make a new sheet from the very beginning, and I'll show you some tricks. This is a really simple software to use. So I'm going to hit New, and I'm going to just start with one page, and I'm going to start tabloid size with a landscape orientation. You see right there. I'm going to unclick facing pages so that each page is on its own. I'm not going to worry about the columns or margins for now. And I'm just going to press OK, and it's going to make my new page. And here on my new page is a typical Adobe user interface. You can see the margins around there. Over here on the right is some handy things that we'll be using a lot. On the left are the tools. And like I said before, InDesign works just like a lot of other Adobe programs. The T, for instance, is for text. This is for text. And you can change the text by highlighting it, Control A, and then changing the font here. I'm going to change it to something nice like Frutiger. And I can change the size of the font here, and etc., etc. You can figure out how to use the different functions. It's very simple. And you can always ask us for help if you come across something that you want to do that you're not sure how to. So if I want to import an image, you can import any number of different types of images: JPEGs, GIFs, PNGs, or PDFs, all work. And the easiest way is to simply drag and drop. So for instance, I've got that PDF I just made of the initial energy model, and I can drag this right onto the canvas here. Gives me a little thumbnail. I click, and then it gives me the whole sheet, cropped actually in this case to the edges of the text. And just going to move this out of the way for a second. And I can easily resize this in a number of ways. If I don't press any keys down, I can drag the border, or the frame as they call it, and crop the image. So this, you can crop it to anything you like. I'm going to press Control Z to undo that. And if I want to resize it, I can press Control Shift and proportionally resize the image. If I press just Control, I can disproportionately resize the image. So I could make it fatter or taller, which I don't want to do in this case. I want to keep it the same proportion. So that's pretty useful. And if I press Alt and the wheel, I can zoom in. Now when I zoom in, you see that this isn't just bad resolution of my screen capture. This is actually, this blurry image is what I'm seeing on my screen as well. And that's because InDesign gives you a fast preview as a way so that you can quickly move from place to place on your screen. If you want to see in more detail what's here, you can go up to View, Overprint Preview, and then it will give you a more refined view of the image. This will take a little bit longer to zoom in and out of. So I'm going to turn that off while I arrange things. So that's really most of what you need to know about InDesign. There's a few other tricks I'm going to show you now. All of these images are linked to the original file. So this is actually very important. If you're sharing files with someone else, or if you move files around on your computer, there's the possibility of losing the link because it's looking, the software is looking for the file address, and if you move the address without telling InDesign, then it doesn't know where to look. So one way to find that is to go to this links box, and you'll see on here's the name of the image, and as you move down, it will tell you down here the path to it. So in this case, it's on my desktop. But if I then say I'm going to go ahead and move that from my desktop, I'm going to this is off screen right now, but I'm going to Control cut it and paste it somewhere else, and you'll see it updates very quickly, and it gives you a question mark saying it's missing. Double click to relink. If I wanted to relink, I can double click it and then navigate to the new place where I have it, which is right here, and then I can relink it by opening it there, and voila, it's back to the new path, and that new path is here. So I want you to be really careful with the links, and as long as you manage them well, you won't have any issues. Just make sure that you've got it in a folder that that is consistent. Okay, so we've got the first page of the PDF in this document, and what if we want to have the second page, which is where we have the graphs? Well, to do that, you can't drag and drop it, unfortunately, because the PDF is 2 pages, and it's just going to drop the first page. So to do this, you press Control-D, and that will place an object. And this is opening where I last navigated to, so you can see my initial energy model right there. And make sure to click the Show Import Options. When you do so and press Open, it's going to give you this Options page, which will allow you to insert all of the PDF or just a range of the PDF. In this case, I'm going to, it's probably easiest for now to just drop in all of the PDF. And I'm going to press OK. And so there's the first page, which we've already got. And here's the second page, which is the graphs. So now I can erase one or the other to get the first page. And the second page I've got here, which are the graphs, and I can resize these, again, using Control-Shift to resize them and align them, or something like this. Well, what if I wanted to have 2 pages instead of just 1? Well, to add pages, go up here to Pages, and down here there's a Create New Page button, and that will add pages to your document. And you can make as many of these as you like. And I'm going to go here, move my graphs with Control-X and Control-V. It pastes it. And now I can resize this to be much larger on the page because it'll fit. In this class, I'm going to place a premium on how your presentations look, because I firmly believe that if they look clean and elegant and simple, then you'll be able to interpret the data that much faster, and that's a really important thing. What we're going to concentrate on in this class is being able to interpret the data accurately and quickly. So I'd like you to make sure that when you lay out these, they're well composed and elegant, there's an appropriate amount of white space, and it looks good. One way to do that is to consistently format the pages. I'm going to require you to use 11:17 landscape format, but also I'd like you to make sure you've got a kind of title block on the page that is consistent throughout the semester, so that you have continuity as you build up this report from beginning to end. And in InDesign, there's an easy way to do this, and they're called master pages. So if you notice on this page, there's something called None and something called Master. If I go up to Master, I'll show you what I mean. If I insert here something, say, zero energy, oops, I'll do this all caps, zero energy building Brendan Levitt, and make a nice font. I have something against fonts that have serifs, so I'm going to use a sans serif font here, and I'm going to make this big so it reads. And so if I add that here and I apply that to here by taking this and dragging it, when I go here, you'll see, actually I had that text from before, you'll see that it's applied to this. And the same with this one. It's automatically applied to this. And the same with this one and this one. And if I want to take that off, I can drag this None onto the page and it goes away. So anything you do to that master is going to then be applied to whichever pages the master is applied to, which is really handy, because then I can go back to my master and create a kind of title block, Control-C, Control-V, and let's say this is the initial energy model, and today's date will be 2016 June 23rd, I think is Thursday. And actually I'm going to put this at the top and this at the bottom, or maybe, I don't know. There's lots of ways of laying this out. I'll leave it to you how you'd like to lay this out. I certainly don't want to dictate this part. I'm going to line this right, and maybe I'll put a line in below. So here's a line tool. I press Shift to keep it horizontal, and I can change. Right now it looks like that's probably white, so I can go to my color palette here and change it to black, and then I can go to my line tool here and change the weight to say 0.5 point, and now I've got a line there. Now you'll notice that there's this blue outline around these the text, and even around the PDF that I showed earlier. To eliminate that, even temporarily, you can press Control H, and that will make it disappear. And if you press Control semicolon, it'll make the border disappear. So you can preview what your page is going to look like. So if I go to one of the pages now, I can see I just deleted that text. Maybe I want my energy model here to be a little smaller and fit on the page a little better. I'm going to turn on my margins by pressing Control semicolon and drag out. And maybe this is a good start for this page. And on the second page, I can similarly press Control Shift and modify this to fit better on the page. If I want to go one step further, I can go into the master and create guidelines. I do this by going up to the ruler and dragging down. And I can drag down to say here, so that I'm always going to give a little bit of a margin from that line. And then that guideline will always show up, and I can align to the guideline so that everything's consistently formatted. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, please bring your questions with you to class. If you make extra pages, you can simply delete them by pressing, by selecting them and then dragging them to this delete bucket, and they'll go away. So last part of the tutorial, and probably the most important part, which is annotating your data so that you can better understand exactly what's going on and communicate that to me and Luis. And I think the best way of doing this is to create a new layer and treat it as an overlay. So you've got all this base data, and then on top of this, you're going to point out what's interesting to point out. So to come up with a new layer, there's this icon over here on the right called Layers. And by the way, if these icons don't show up like this for you when you open it, you can go to Window and click on these, and they'll appear. So here's Layer. Everything right now is on Layer 1. If you wanted to add a new layer, you press down here to create a new layer, and double click to rename it. So I'm going to call these Notes. And I can also hide things here by pressing the I. All of these are on the same layer. I can also lock them in this one. So now if I try to select them, they don't select. Nothing happens. If I deselect that lock, if I unlock it, I can now select them. Notice though, I can't select anything that's in my master page. I have to go to my master in order to select those things. So on my notes layer, I would like you to make sure that you do a really good job of annotating these. And so, for instance, one way of annotating would be to I'm going to go to View, Overprint Preview, so I can see these a little better. And I would expect that my utility bill and my model and my benchmark should all have about the same fuel use. But you can see that this is the fuel use, the dark gray, and the fuel use in the model is this dark blue and this blue, which is space heating and hot water heating and space heating. And the same with the benchmark. This is hot water heating and space heating. So although I would expect or hope that they all line up and have the same amount of energy use intensity, in fact, they're not lining up. So one way that I might annotate this is to kind of draw a line from one to the other, like that, and maybe I'll give this a really recognizable color so that it's clear. I'm clear to myself what I'm trying to do here. So I'm going to go to my swatches and choose by the way, you can change the fill and the stroke here just by toggling. So you can see that it's changing my fill and stroke. I want the fill to be clear, so none, and I want the stroke to be, let's say it's pink, or maybe red. And the stroke size maybe 0.75, and I'm going to make these dashed like that. So then from this I can then perhaps point out with a leader that that I want that these are different, but I would expect them to be the same. I'm going to press Control H here again to get rid of these boxes, and Control comma to get rid of the guidelines. And maybe I want, yeah, maybe this is good. I'm going to do all the annotations in red. So what would be a good annotation here? Would expect all, or maybe all models should show similar fuel consumption, but they don't. If you run into this problem where you're typing and it doesn't show it, it's either because your computer is lagging, which is what's happening to mine right now, or you're typing off of the edge of the box. I'll show you what I mean here. Here's the box. If I move the box in like this, you'll see that not all of the text shows up. And I can troubleshoot this by clicking on it, and you see this plus sign right here. That means that it's not all there. The reason that this happens, or the reason they give you this option, is because when you're typing long bits of text, you can continue that text by clicking on that plus sign and then clicking somewhere else and making a new text box, so that if you were to erase something from this side, it would all flow through. I can then just delete this other one and come back to this. Okay, so I really don't like this font again. I'm going to go back to my Lucida Sans, and I'm going to make this red as well. To make the font red, I can come here and think this should work. There it is. And maybe I'll just drag this out to the side. By the way, as you annotate these, I expect you to start to hypothesize about why things are performing differently, not just that they're performing differently. So all models should show similar fuel consumption, but they don't, because I might have underestimated what's the second one? It's space heating requirements, or space heating fuel use. So I can then take this, drag it out to here, maybe make sure that that's linked. You can also make arrowheads by going to that stroke box. You can have the arrow begin at the start, which is because I dragged it this way, or you can have the arrowhead begin at the end. Of course, we don't want to do that now. And so I hope this is clear. In the final analysis, I would really like for you to have a whole set of annotations. These should be marked up pretty well to show your understanding of the modeling assumptions and limitations. The last part of the assignment is to make some educated guesses as to what you would target first in terms of reducing energy use and getting closer to a zero net energy building. And I'd like you to sort of add a new page for that, and at the very end here, write, I'm going to just copy my text over so this will be easier. Write a short paragraph or a list of, here are the things I would do to decrease energy use, and then give a list, whether it's replacing light bulbs or replacing a hot water heater or a boiler, or putting more insulation in, or weatherproofing the windows, or whatever it is. Give your best guess, and you'll have lots of chances to redo this through the semester. But it's good to start hypothesizing now. And I also want you to say why you would do those. What are the things about the analysis you've done so far that leads you to that conclusion? So with that, happy modeling, enjoy, have fun, and let me know if you have any questions.